Right now, without thinking about it, you probably picked up your phone with one specific hand. You write with the same hand every time. You wave with it, you shake hands with it, you throw a ball with it. About 9 out of 10 people on the planet do all of this with their right hand. Here's the strange part. No other animal on Earth does this. Not chimpanzees, not gorillas, not a single species of monkey. Individual animals might favor one paw or hand, sure, but scientists have never found another species where almost the entire population leans the same direction. Humans are, in this one specific way, completely alone. So why does your body do this? And why has it puzzled scientists for decades? Researcher Thomas Puschel at the University of Oxford led a team that finally cracked this open in 2026. Together with colleagues at Oxford and the University of Reading, he compared handedness across more than 2,000 individuals spanning 41 different primate species, everything from tiny monkeys to great apes. They tested every obvious explanation: diet, habitat, tool use, social structure. None of it fully explained why humans stood so far outside the pattern. For a species that shares the vast majority of its genetic code with chimpanzees, humans behaved like a strange outlier that simply refused to fit any established primate model. Then they added two more variables into the model: brain size, and the relative length of your arms compared to your legs, which is basically a stand-in for how upright your walking style is. The moment those two factors went in, something remarkable happened. Humans stopped looking like a mystery at all. The exceptional, unexplainable outlier simply vanished from the data, replaced by a clear and predictable pattern. Here's how the story actually unfolds, step by step. Long before modern humans existed, early ancestors like Australopithecus moved around on all fours some of the time and upright on two legs some of the time. Animals that move this way, climbing through trees and balancing on branches, tend to rely on one hand for grip and stability, while the other hand does something else, like reaching for fruit or peeling bark. Which hand does the gripping is fairly random from individual to individual. There's no strong pull toward left or right at the species level. This matches almost exactly what scientists still see in modern great apes today. But then something changed. Human ancestors committed fully to walking upright on two legs. And that single shift did something no other primate lineage experienced in quite the same way. It freed the hands completely from the job of locomotion. No more using an arm to steady yourself on a branch or push off the ground. Both hands were suddenly available for something else, all the time. At first, this newfound freedom probably didn't create a strong left or right bias on its own, but it opened the door for something bigger to happen next. As brains grew larger and more complex, particularly in the genus Homo, the researchers found that right-hand dominance intensified dramatically. This lines up with something scientists have known separately for a long time. In most people, the left side of the brain controls the right side of the body, and that same left hemisphere also handles a huge share of language processing and fine, precise motor control. As brains expanded and became more specialized, it seems the same side that was getting better at complex sequential tasks, like planning a sentence or napping a stone tool with exact, repeated strikes, also ended up controlling the hand doing the most delicate physical work. Language and dexterity riding on the same side of the brain, growing stronger together. Let's picture how this might have played out for an early ancestor learning to make a stone tool. He sits with a rock in each hand. One hand holds the core steady, providing stability. The other hand strikes it, again and again, at precise angles, chipping away flakes to form a sharp edge. This isn't random hammering. It takes controlled, repeatable, fine motor sequencing, essentially a physical routine that has to be learned and refined. Over many generations, individuals whose brains happen to be slightly better wired for this kind of precise, one-sided control would have made sharper tools, faster with less wasted effort. Sharper tools meant better hunting, more efficient butchering, and a real survival edge over ancestors whose hand control was less consistent. A hunter who could reliably strike a flake in exactly the right spot, wasted less stone, worked faster, and produced tools with sharper, more dependable edges. Over enough generations, that small efficiency advantage adds up into something evolution actually notices and favors. Slowly, generation after generation, whichever hand the brain's specialized side controlled became the default tool hand for almost everyone. Here's the twist that makes this even more interesting. Not every human ancestor followed this pattern the same way. The researchers used their models to estimate handedness in extinct species too, and one stood out immediately: Homo floresiensis, the tiny hominin nicknamed the Hobbit because of its small size, discovered on the Indonesian island of Flores. This species had a notably weaker right-hand bias than other members of the genus Homo. Why? Its brain stayed relatively small, closer in size to earlier hominins than to modern humans, and its body kept some physical traits suited for climbing, alongside walking upright. It never fully specialized in the same direction that led to strong human-handedness. In other words, it sat in an in-between evolutionary space, neither fully committed to upright life like us, nor still swinging through branches like earlier ancestors, and its hands reflected that in-between status. This tells you something important. Strong right-handedness wasn't guaranteed just because a species walked upright. It took upright walking and a big specialized brain working together to produce the extreme, population-wide bias you see in humans today. Remove either ingredient, as Homo floresiensis seems to show, and the strong bias never fully forms. Think about how deeply this ancient shift still shapes your daily life. The scissors on your desk, the way spiral notebooks open, the design of can openers and power drills, all built around manufacturing decisions made for a right-handed majority. Even something as simple as a school desk with an attached armrest was, for decades, only made in a right-handed version. Left-handed people, roughly 10% of the population, navigate a world quietly designed around this ancient evolutionary tilt, every single day, often without anyone around them realizing it. Musical instruments carry the same fingerprint. Standard guitars and violins are built assuming a right-handed player will do the fine, precise fretting or bowing work with the dominant hand, while the other hand handles the simpler, repetitive motion. It's the same division of labor your ancestors were working out with a stone core and a striking hand, just replayed on a completely different kind of tool thousands of generations later. And it goes even deeper than tools. Scientists have found that left-handed people tend to have a dominant right hemisphere, essentially a mirror image of the typical pattern. Some recent genetic research has even identified specific gene variants, more common in left-handed individuals, that may influence how the brain organizes itself early in development before a baby ever picks up a single object. Your hand preference, it turns out, is written into the wiring of your brain before you're even born, shaped by evolutionary pressures that started with your ancestors' very first steps on two legs. So the next time you pick up a pen or a fork or your phone, without a second thought, remember what you're actually looking at. Not a random habit, not a coincidence. The final result of millions of years of upright walking and expanding brain power, quietly written into the hand you didn't even choose. Somewhere back in your family tree, an ancestor stood upright for the first time, freeing a pair of hands that had spent millions of years gripping branches. Everything that followed, the tools, the language, the small daily habit of reaching for your phone with one specific hand, traces back to that single evolutionary turning point. If quirks like this make you look at your own body differently, stick around. There's a lot more about how you were built that's still worth uncovering.